Hello and welcome to the Wait I Know You podcast, Season 1, Episode 5. My name is Nick Rounds and I will be your host. My next guest has devoted their life to all things art. She's an independent costume designer, a set designer, and an event coordinator. You've seen her work most recently at the Waters Halloween Meltdown Festival in Oakland, California, on stage at Beats Antique shows, and possibly even in her backyard. More on that later, or possibly very soon. Christina Molcillo.
Hi.
Wait, I know you. How are you today?
I'm doing good. I'm doing well.
It's good to see you. In classic you form, you have the most amazing background ever. It's not a Zoom background. That's actually
this is real.
Part of your. This is part of
background. I don't think I've actually been on a Zoom call. Really, maybe like Zoom. I don't even know what I'm in. I had somebody else help me set this up. That's
Zoom calls wish they look like your background.
I know.
How are you doing?
I'm doing good today.
I love pregnant. Yes. Do you want to talk about that first and foremost? That's one of the things I want to talk about. But
yeah.
So you're expecting your first? Congrats.
Yep. Actually, today is my third trimester, or the start of my third trimester. So I'm in the sliding into home base almost, getting there, and it's tiring, but I'm really excited to be here right now. So I'm good right now.
So overall, how has that journey been for you?
I think it's like the coolest reason to suffer I've ever had. Like when you're sick, or like if you're dying of cancer or something really sad, if you're dealing with stuff that's kind of painful or uncomfortable, it would not be like I have this end result where I'm like, I'm gonna have a baby and a family, so it's definitely not convenient to have like heartburn and I can't sleep and I'm tired and all the pregnancy stuff, but I'm actually okay with it. I'm totally fine with all the physical and emotional things that come with it. So I'm really happy to have the experience. It's something I've been wanting for a long time. So I'm trying to savor all of it as best as I can.
Is there any moments that particularly stick with you that feel really special, or that you just didn't know you were getting yourself into, besides being pregnant, obviously?
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's like finding out along the way symptoms that you just didn't know you'd have. Like, I can't breathe. So I was like constantly out of breath, and I was like, oh, the baby's taking up space in my lungs. Or, you kind of have sinus like problems all the time. I don't know. It's these little things that I just didn't really do my research, to be honest. And so when they come up, I'm like, what the hell? Like, oh, by the way, can I cuss?
Oh yes, please do. You can swear as much as you want. Be a sailor.
Yeah. So
and also, how dare you say the word hell?
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Yeah.
John Waters signed your baby bump. Talk to me about that experience.
I mean, I knew when, let's see, when you do a lot of shows, like, I'm not gonna lie, I don't really care about the show, but there's certain parts of shows that like are important to me. Like this was, I wanted to see it for a moment on stage. I want to see the crowd, but I only need to see that for like 5 minutes, and I'm like, cool, it looks good.
For context, I mentioned it in the intro, but you and your crew did the set design for John Waters' Halloween Meltdown. Can you explain what Meltdown is first, and kind of set the stage for how him signing your tummy came to be?
Yeah, it's normally Burger Boogaloo, which is every year, and I think because of COVID, they had to push it back, and so they did their first Halloween version of it. And cool fact, I actually got the job because the producer is apparently one of my neighbors, and he knocked on my door. So like that opportunity knocks was a real thing for me. He's like, hey, I think you're a set designer and we really need help. And I was like, how much does it pay? And then I was like, all right, I'm listening. So basically, yeah, I got the job because my house is usually decorated a lot. And they just kind of figured that I might be creative, and yeah, so they asked me. So anyways, yeah, that's how I got to do this particular stage. I've never been to the show before this, so it was kind of like my first time, but I had to do my research to see what their previous stages look like so that I could kind of follow suit of, you know, what their themes look like. But I did it my own way.
And you got to meet John Waters in the process.
I did. So that was like one of the things I just was like, the tick mark was seeing the crowd enjoy it, see it lit up. Great. Then I could go home for that. But the other thing is I really just wanted John Waters to sign my belly because I just thought that would be really cool. And I waited for my opportunity where he was backstage, and I grabbed the stage manager and I'm like, can you please like take me over to him now? And he's like, okay. It was really loud, so I had to kind of yell, but he said he loved the stage and he was hoping I was going to do it next year. And I said, can I be one of those cheesy fans? And can you please sign my stomach? And he's like, I'd love to. So, I mean, it was kind of a brief interaction, but it was really nice and it meant a lot to me. And now I have that shirt and I need to find a frame for it. So definitely want to keep it.
That's awesome. Yeah, he was a real sweetheart when I met him, and of course ghosts wants to yell as soon as they start talking.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, he's a sweetheart and a living legend, and it's so nice that he's still around and doing amazing art and just supporting the artist community in general. So
yeah.
Post the birth of your son, how do you think your life is going to change in relation to your art? Just, starting off with the light questions.
I know, right? No, I mean, I've been thinking about it. Actually, today, I saw my set design that I just did for Beats, and I realized, I mean, I know I'm not there, but it was like seeing the crew and seeing everything and be like, normally I've been there for the last 2 years to every single show pretty much. So I was like, oh, and I had a moment where I was kind of sad, but then I was like, I don't want to do anything differently. So I feel moving forward, I mean, I have a project in mind, which, I can talk about later, but a themed Airbnb is my way of trying to convert being creative while staying home. And, because there's things like I can't go on a tour bus with the baby. That's not going to work out so well. So I want to stay creative. There might be a lot more kid things that get thrown into it. And the idea of teaching my son, like, my tricks. I mean, I think every parent hopes, like, maybe their kids will kind of take after them a little bit. So I'm hoping he's going to not be like, ew, mommy, I don't want to go to the thrift store for the 50th time. I'm hoping he'll kind of enjoy some of these projects. And I think especially during COVID, we were doing a lot of community stuff with neighborhood kids, and they're just so funny. And it's like listening to their ideas and getting them excited and watching them like take little lessons that I would teach them and do that. I just found actually way more joy from that than honestly watching a bunch of drunk people at a concert. Probably an unpopular opinion, but like, I mean, I've done the stages enough. I've been there enough. I've been through the loud shows. I've seen all that. And this was like this opportunity to like watch children, and it actually warmed my heart more than anything I've done in a long time. So the idea of doing that with my son, I'm old enough to like, I feel like gracefully transition into that kind of lifestyle without feeling like he took something away from me or, no, I feel like it's going to make it even cooler, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, because you interacted, so during quarantine you were doing some art projects. I mean, with lockdown and everything, it's not exactly like anybody was traveling anywhere. And you kind of took it upon yourself to use the time to reach out to your neighborhood and turn your neighborhood into an art project in a lot of ways. And I thought the most like touching part of it, honestly, was you interacting with that little girl, and like basically building on a dollhouse with her. It was really inspiring and touching because it's like, you know, sometimes people don't value art in the ways that they should. And when you light up a child like Christmas in terms of like their imagination and letting them have ownership and autonomy over the project, like you're planting a seed of creativity in them. And so I thought it was really beautiful, the stuff that you're doing with your neighbors. Can you talk about some of the fun stuff that you're doing during the pandemic, as far as like interacting with your neighbors and getting to know your neighborhood better?
So it started with Halloween, and I started thinking about like, God, this is gonna suck like so bad. There's just like there's no events, and actually our neighborhood really, I would get maybe like 2 or 3 trick-or-treaters every year. It was really sad. On top of that, I always had jobs, so for the last 5 years I've had, you know, event jobs. So the year before this, in 2019, I remember we were making all these big props for this other event, and we're like, okay, just throw them in the yard because it's Halloween. But I had to load them on Halloween night, and it sucked. Like these poor kids were coming up to trick or treat, and we're like loading all of these like, you know, big scarecrows and statues and stuff like that. And I'm like, these aren't for you. Ugh. I felt really guilty. So when quarantine came and I was like, okay, I have an entire basement full of props that would just be sitting here. I don't have a job. I have a ton of time. And I reached out to my neighbors. There's about 5 of them. They're all in the immediate area. And I was like, look, these are all the different things we can do. Like I can do Day of the Dead. I have a giant spider. We could do circus. Pick one. I'll come over one of these days, and like your kids can come out and I'll kind of just guide them. And it was like not stressful. It was fun. I kind of just like gave them things and be like, put them wherever you want. Or one of my favorite little memories was there's a little girl who lives across the street. I think she's probably 4. And I taught her how to do just like those plain cobwebs, which I normally wouldn't use, but they're kid friendly and they're really easy. And I was like, well, if you spread them out really thin, they look real. And if you put them like a clump, they kind of look like a cloud. Like you don't want to do it that way. And I swear I turned around like 20 minutes later, and she'd meticulously like spread them out super thin. Like she did a better job than I would have done. And it was so freaking cute. And then her dad told me like all through Halloween, he's like, I would look across the street and there'd just be more and more and more cobwebs added to their house. And he's just like, oh my God, she's obsessed. And then I don't know, that was like the cutest thing ever to me. I was like, I did that. I taught this kid something. It made them happy. It made me happy. I mean, there was nothing, it was all like symbiotic. It was a great experience.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And you made a like a little house, like a front of a house as well, and you've been remixing it a bunch of times.
So that came after Halloween. I was like, well, fuck it. Like there's Christmas, and I normally don't decorate for Christmas too much. It's not like I don't like the holiday. I just don't normally have time. And so I was like, I want to build a life-size gingerbread house. But I want it really cute and pink. So we kind of call it the candy house. It doesn't really have an official name. So we put that up, and with that came the idea of doing an advent calendar. I don't know if you got to see us do that. But that idea came from like, how can we gift things to the neighborhood? And I was like, well, advent calendar has all of the gifts. And I was like, that won't work. So we made a little tiny house. I think I got it at Michael's, and I repainted it to look like the bigger version of the candy house. And then every day we put one present in it, and we made a little sign saying, advent calendar, see if you got today's gift. And I mean, we went to Dollar Tree. We spent like $30. It really was kind of fun for us to like find things, like it was toys or lip balm or soap or whatever it was. And it became like these social experiments to see like, will people interact with it? Like, are they going to take the gift? Are they going to leave it? Are they going to be weirded out? And I mean, immediately the presents were gone every day. And we realized, oh my God, we need more. So we were buying a bunch more, and then people were seeing it on social media. So they would send me $20, which would be 20 more gifts. It was just like, it was so cute. And because my backyard, there's like a work deck where we're normally like painting stuff, I have like an eye shot of the sidewalk where they interact with things, but I'm not like right there. So it's like, you can kind of see me, but not really. So I can kind of creep, that's a wrong word, but I can kind of like look over and see when people are interacting with things, and I can listen. And it was just really endearing to hear them like be so giddy about it and be like, oh my God, this is so cute. And again, I think when you're when you do stages, I literally will put it up and then I can go be in the crowd. You have no idea that I did all that work and that it took me months to build that. Like my people on social media would know that, but this is like kind of more interactive, and I could hear the praise, which is not all why I did, but it made me feel really good. So
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, getting immediate feedback about something you've done creatively is always super satisfying. You already kind of touched on this earlier, but I want to go back to it because I think it's really cool. So you've collaborated with Beats Antique multiple times, but number one, can you describe Beats Antique as a band, what it is, and then also can you describe your relationship to Beats Antique?
Beats Antique is a really theatrical band that honestly, I think I couldn't pick better musicians to work for. Aesthetically, they just have big ideas, and they're really colorful and bright, and they have a Middle Eastern like belly dance background, which is how I actually met them. Zoe, amazing, beautiful belly dancers, probably one of the best in the world. She was in our belly dance scene, and she was kind of like the superstar. So for years, I mean, I was just always in awe and too shy to meet her. And the story of actually how I met her was there was a particular yearly festival, and I just kept making all these really amazing costumes, hoping one day she would come to me and like what I did. I didn't actually like chase her down, and after about 4 years, she finally came into my booth, and I was like, oh my God, play cool. And I asked her if she would model for me, and that's how I got my in with Beats Antique. Well, that's how I got my in with Zoe, and then Beats Antique started becoming a thing. So I just kept, hi, like, I'm learning set design if you need help. Like, it's just kind of like offer my services and probably annoy people enough till they finally give me a chance. That's how I got that job.
What are some of the things you're most proud of as far as like your collaborations with them?
We built them a store, which most people really don't ever get to see, but it took me like 6 months. And I didn't do it with a big crew. It was only like one other person. And so it's something I really had like all hands on, because sometimes when we're building stuff bigger, I need help. So I do a lot of art directing, but on this one, I built like most of it. And it's cool. It looks like you're kind of like in an old Victorian living room with a fireplace and a hidden bookcase door and a shack and I don't know. It's really interesting, and no one's really seen it, honestly. And other than that, like the stage stuff, I guess I had no experience whatsoever doing any stage tour, nothing. And so I know the first few ones, like I was terrified, and there'd be stagehands being like, do you want this tabletop? Do you want this? And I had no fucking clue what they were talking about. And I just had to pretend to know what I was doing. And that's how I learned, pretty much. Just sort of faked it. And also just bet I was honest too. When I didn't understand things, I would just say, what does that mean? So, yay, there's the stages.
Yeah. And then I think I have a picture of you backstage as well at the merch booth.
That's funny. I don't even know where that came from. Yep, that's me.
Yeah. I guess related to having people respond to your art, because you were more or less interacting with the crowd there too. Were there any notable people reacting to the sets and stuff like that without even knowing that it was you?
For the Beats Antique,
Yeah.
sometimes, sometimes like the band will thank the crew at the end of the night. Which, if you go to any concert and they hear you do that, I think in the past I'd be like, why are they thanking their crew? Like, who cares? And then when you're the crew, you're like, thank you, because we really are the behind the scenes people that work 12 hours and really just bust our asses, and you have no idea who we are. So on particular nights, they'll be like, Christina, who's also working our merch booth, but is probably way overqualified to do that job, but she's here and she did our stage, and she's, like, they would give me this praise, and they'd be like, on your way out, give her a high five. And that was really nice. So, like, people really would come up and like, thanks, like, it looks great. But for the most part, no one knows. You're kind of just, you do this big thing and no one knows you did it. And that's pretty much the life of like any behind the scenes stage designer. We're the unsung heroes.
I mean, frankly, that's exactly why I'm doing this podcast, is because I know that all the awesome things that you've done, and that's really what the goal of this podcast is to highlight people that have done stuff that people have seen or interacted with, but they might not actually know the person who's behind it. And you have been behind so many amazing things. You're in front of something that's behind you that looks amazing. Your work always knocks me out in terms of like how you organize people, because it's not just you also organize people. Like, you're pregnant and you recreated the Beetlejuice strip club in your backyard.
Yeah.
Can you talk to me about how that project started and what the process was like?
That was, we were just getting vaccinated. Delta wasn't out. I wasn't pregnant. And we just thought, fuck it, we're going to have this huge raging party and celebrate, these horrific years that we've been going through. So that's how we started with that. And then we picked the Beetlejuice theme, and we started realizing how well it collaborated with our house, because it is kind of based in an old Victorian house. So originally it was going to go through our home and be in our living room and in different rooms and outside. But when Delta became a thing, we realized we had to push it outside. And so we put more emphasis definitely on Dante's Inferno, which that is Daniel Silva. That is not me, who built this amazing thing. He did it on the computer first, and everybody chipped in and helped, but he's really the one that engineered that. I just got him money and like paint and like extra hands, but I cannot take credit for that. He did it for sure.
But it's in your backyard.
And I'm actually in it right now. So this is the tiki bar inside of Dante's Inferno.
Can you, well, it might be kind of a tough subject to talk about, but actually, I think it's still an important subject to talk about and what it means, frankly. Can you talk about what the bar means to you specifically and why it was built?
Yeah, Tiki Bar is a memorial to my best friend, Michael Aiello, who I lived with for 10 years here, almost 10 years. And he recently passed away about 2 years ago. A tiki bar was our last intended project. I knew that he was getting sick, and I started to think of stuff that would kind of cheer him up, or projects, that he would like doing. And he was really big into mid-century modern and that whole kind of 50s culture. Tiki's really big in that. And so we were notorious for bickering about projects all the time. And this was one of the ones that I was like, I'm not going to fight him on it. I really don't know anything about tiki. He's more the expert. I was going to just kind of sit back and help. So we started drawing this bar out, and then he got really sick. But we continued to plan it out even when when he was in the hospital. And, I started to realize like, oh shit, I'm going to have to do this without him. And it was never supposed to be a Pee-wee mashup. It was supposed to be just a straight tiki bar. When he passed, like, he just had this amazing collection, like the Pee-wee bike that's behind me, he left me that. And just all these like amazing toys and art. And I disobeyed his last wishes. Like, he really wanted me to get rid of everything except for the things that were on this list that he gave to people. And I couldn't do it. And I also didn't feel like his friends wanted to do that, and his parents. So I decided to make this space so that he, all of his things are in it. And it's actually set designed a lot like his room, which was a really interesting project when you think like, I'm set designing my dead best friend. Like, this is how his TV was set up, with little trophies and his little like candy dishes. I did it exactly the way he did it. This wall painted like this was painted like that in his room as well. He like copied things from the Playhouse, and then I copied his room into this space. So it was, I think it was really healing too, because it gave all of the friends and the family a place to come and work on it together while we were like heavily grieving, because we started this project probably about a month after he passed. It was pretty quick. So, it was a way for us to kind of go through his things and share memories and just be together instead of being alone and separate, suffering and missing him. It was like we got to hang out and laugh and share our Michael stories. So I'm really proud of the way that, just that experience turned out. And then, the bar, when you walk in here, you don't need to know that it's a memorial. But if I feel like telling people, like, by the way, this is actually my really close friend's memorial space, like, it kind of sometimes it ruins the vibe. Sometimes people are really appreciative of like, oh, thanks for sharing that. Like, that makes it really special. It's just so fun and playful. You wouldn't think of like, this is kind of like a sad tribute. But
yeah, it's hard to have the juxtaposition of being something that makes you feel like you're in Pee-wee's Playhouse mixed in with the bitter sweetness of knowing that you lost a close creative friend.
yeah.
I think it's really important to note as well is that like how important he was in your life, not just as a friend, but also as a creative influence in your life as well. Because y'all lived together and y'all transformed your house, which is lovingly nicknamed the Haunted Mansion. I think every single time I visited your place, it's looked different. The very first time I ever visited your house, your hallway was like the hallway for the Fratellis from the Goonies, with all the wood planks and everything. Your kitchen had a drawbridge which led out to a pirate ship.
Yeah.
And you had a pirate ship in your backyard. And then you also had, in the bar where you're at now, kind of, sort of, maybe not exactly the same place, but
Same place.
Oh, it is? Okay. You had One-Eyed Willie's Pirate Bar, which, as far as like knowing that was just in your house and the level of visual fidelity that y'all can achieve in however many months it takes you to do, just always blows me away. Like, your work and the work that you do with and how you empower others to work with you. It always impresses me and blows me away.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that was all Michael. I didn't know any set design before I met him. So he was a stickler about detail and authenticity, and if I did something that was like cheap and half-ass, he would let me know and he would ring me for it until I fixed it. And I used to hate him for some of that stuff because I would just be like, oh, I just have to get it done. But he was always right. I don't know if you can hear me saying that right now, but Michael, yes, you were right about a lot of things, and I'm glad that he pushed me to that limit. And you know, he told me even like with my costumes, he could tell. I'm gonna say this, like, you know, when you have somebody else who's a creative artist, who's your friend, and they just know when you've half-assed something, or you've rushed it, or you could have done better. And he always called me out on it, and I just couldn't slip things past him, where maybe to like someone who's not doesn't have a trained eye would just be like, that's amazing, and it was still good, but Michael knew I could do better, and so he would really push me, and I carry that with me with every project. You know, I know when I've quit too early, or I haven't done the extra step that it really needed to, you know, make it something way more special and creative. So yeah, that's all Michael. He taught me well, and I try to carry that on, because yeah, I don't want to lose all of that knowledge that he taught me. It definitely lives within me.
Is there any particular moment or project where he really pushed you, and maybe you were again annoyed at him at the moment, but is there a particular like time when that happened that really sticks with you?
I mean, they're like really little stupid things that, like, I think one, when we were first building, well, we did a Nightmare Before Christmas party, and we are building this like Oogie Boogie's tunnel that you would have to go into, and I wanted to do it like just out of plywood, and you would go into that. And then he was like, no, it needs to be individual slots of wood that are all put together and each painted separately. And I was like, God, that's going to take forever. But he was right. When we're done with it, it just looked so much better. Yeah, there we go. That's our tiki. That was the blacklight bar we did. And then we just fight over stupid stuff too. For that Goonies thing you're talking about, the One-Eyed Willie, we literally fought over about like 5 inches of where his height should be, where the skeleton should be. That thing, yes, that. We got a huge fight over that. Felt like, for me, it was a cross between, it is Goonies, but it was a little nod to Pirates of the Caribbean, because like there's that scene where the pirate is like on the gold. And as a kid, I always just wanted to like jump, you know, off the boat and like go play in the gold. So it was like kind of my little recreation and nod to that. And he wanted it lower, and I was like, it just wouldn't look epic if he's down here. He needs to be up here. And literally, Michael was so mad at me, he almost walked off and didn't help me for the rest of Halloween. Like, we had a huge fight over something that stupid.
Yeah, I thought it looked great, but I'm a little biased because I used it for a photo shoot. Oh, sorry, it cut off for a second. Can you say that again?
Yeah, I remember that. That's Olivia. Yep. Yep.
It was a fun shoot.
Mm-hmm.
So again, thank you for sharing that. I know it's a tough subject to talk about, but I think it's really important, and you know, it shows that it takes a village, and I think it's really inspiring too that that you've really taken on yourself to teach in the way that Michael taught you, and with all these projects that have been happening, like with this specific bar, that's really when I saw you like really go out of your way to teach people. Like my friend Natalie flew to you to go like learn under you, and she learned so much from you. And so I think it's really awesome that you're taking Michael's spirit on and kind of doing the things that he did for you, for others.
Yeah. I mean, Michael was really stubborn and he didn't like a lot of people. So, I mean, I think it kind of did this funnel from like his knowledge to me, and then I spread it out because he was tough to deal with for other people, and he just didn't let people in. But once he did, he was fiercely loyal. And so I think it was a good combination between the two of us, because I was the more social one. I was the one really excited to interact with other people and, share, where he's like kind of wanted to keep it to himself. He didn't really care about that kind of stuff. He did it because he just wanted to like own it. So like if he made a prop, like say Pee-wee's bike, it had nothing to do with him getting praise or money. He just wanted to have it. Like, I think he had a different motivation than I did when, like, I don't like recreating, even though we keep doing it. The truth is, I don't like recreating other people's work a lot of the time because it already exists. But I do like the challenge of like adapting it. So like, Nightmare for Christmas is like, that's a miniature set. So we had to make it life size. And how do you, kind of adapt those things? But getting off topic. Anyways,
No, it's still on topic because we're still talking about all the awesome things you've done.
Yeah, thanks. But I like collaboration because I think when you get to a certain point of being an artist, in the beginning you're sort of faking it and you don't know what you're doing and you're kind of insecure and you don't want people copying you, and then once you've done a few things and like there's a confidence that comes with your age and your knowledge and your experience that you're like, I don't need to hoard this all to myself. And I'm totally fine now saying like when I don't understand something, when I don't know how to do something, and there are tons of other people who are way more talented than me at building and painting, and I'm like, if I can hone their craft and we put it all together and work as a team, like I'm not a one-man show. Like I need help. So I like taking people's talents and making them feel like they're part of something bigger than all of us. And also if somebody doesn't know anything, like teaching them new tricks, like that's a really, I don't know, it's a fun way to just like make friends and share your experience with somebody.
God forbid. Can I tell you a story that I've never told you before about Michael?
Yeah. Okay.
So, and I might cut this in case it sucks, but I'm gonna tell you anyway because I want to, because I haven't told you. So on the night that I met you, which was doing that beauty shoot, you were offering that set to photographers to use for a photo shoot, whatever, with a donation in mind. And as a add-on was having Michael help out with the lighting.
Okay.
So I showed up with Olivia, and because I saw the photos and I was like, oh, it looks like it's really lit up, really cool. I'm expecting Michael to just, be in there and like move lights around and be like, oh, is this good, whatever. So we go out to the backyard and you're like, all right, I'm going to go back inside. Michael will take it from here. And so he just kind of stood there. I'm like, so what are we doing? He's like, I don't know. What are you doing?
Oh God.
And then, so I'm like, okay. So I just moved my lights around. And then by the time I was done moving my lights around, he had disappeared back into the house and never came back.
Yeah, that's
But I didn't mention anything because I was like, oh, whatever, it's fine. But I was laughing about it because I was annoyed at the time. But every time I've heard stories about Michael, and now that I know really who he is and how he was, like, it just seems like, yeah, that's just who he is.
he was a butthole. Like he was stubborn and he was not a people pleaser. Like he didn't care. He didn't really want to be there. I don't know how to explain it, but on top of it, he also, like, everybody wanted to be his friend. And he's just like, I don't know. It was weird. Like, sometimes I'd be jealous of just like, how are you so cool and you're not even really trying and you suck? Like, you're totally mean. But yeah, sorry. Wait, did you have to, so you paid for his services and that's what he did?
Yeah, but I mean, it was going to you guys, and there's not a dollar wasted with you guys, so there was no reason for me to make a stink about it. I just thought it was really funny after the fact because I'm like, all right, whatever. He's just gonna be a weirdo. And then now that every story I've heard after that about like who he is as a person, I'm like, if that was my personality, I would have just sulked off in the dark into the darkness as well when nobody was looking. Like, I'm pretty sure he slowly backed away from me when I wasn't looking, which I think is hilarious.
Yep, that sounds about right. He did that. Yeah, I would always have to explain like why he was my friend sometimes because they're like, "What is the deal with that dude?" And I'm like, I don't know how to explain it. Like once you get him, you just like you fall in love with him, and he's just like, I mean, he really was super loyal. It just took forever to get through that barrier, and yeah, I've never had a friend like him, and I'll never have a friend like him ever again. I know that.
Well, thank you for sharing that with me, and thank you for indulging my Michael story.
That's funny. It's doesn't surprise me.
So we spent a lot of time talking about set design, but I actually want to go back to some of your early stuff and the stuff that like comes naturally to you. Well, not naturally, but the stuff that you're also really good at. I want to talk about costuming as well. How did that come to your life?
So I'm trying to think. Like, when I was in high school, I was discovering who I was, and I knew somewhere around like 16, I was like, I want to be an artist. But I had like no idea what kind of artist. So I went to the Academy of Art, and they had a summer program, and I learned photography, illustration, and I picked fashion design as like a last. Like, I guess this looks kind of cool. And what I learned was that I really wasn't that good of an illustrator. So, because like when I saw other people drawing, I was like, ooh, that's really good. And mine's like, eh. And then photography was a little bit difficult for me because I'm just not really a technical person. I have problems with that. And then fashion design was just like, it kind of encompassed everything. Like you got to sketch, you got to take pictures of it, you got to be inspired by anything. And so I fell in love with that. And then I went to school for about a year. And all my designs, I mean, I got A's in my classes for design. I just barely passed the construction classes. Again, I'm not really good technically. I would do better when I can work with a seamstress sometimes.
I think we lost you for half a second.
Yeah.
And we're back.
Where should I pick up?
No, you're good.
Okay. I basically realized that they were teaching me to be a fashion designer, which a fashion designer creates collections for seasons. It's supposed to be mass produced. It's supposed to go into a store. And I was like, that's not quite what I like. And I couldn't figure it out until later. I'm like, oh, I'm a costume designer. Like, I like making things that are one-off and handmade and elaborate and not supposed to be mass produced. So that's kind of how I started going into that realm, was just mostly diving into belly dance costumes. I see some boobs right there. Yep. I was a belly dancer for a hot minute, and I realized I didn't really like being on stage, but I really like making the costumes. So I started to basically keep honing that technique and selling stuff, and that's how I got my start. I sort of didn't know what I wanted to do. Art school helped me pick a direction at least. And then I dropped out, because who needs art school?
It's overrated anyhow.
Yeah.
And you've also done really cool installations for the Sub-Zero Art Walk in San Jose as well. Yeah.
Um, those came about because they were going to have a fashion show and they didn't actually have time to fit me into the runway show. And so they're like, we'll just give you a booth and maybe your models will just sit in there. And I was like, that's the stupidest idea I've ever heard. And then I started thinking about it because that's about the time I met Michael. And I was like, wow, you know what? If I mix these two, like the set design and the costuming, like I can create this whole world and it stays up a lot longer than if I just did a runway show where it goes out for 5 minutes and you have to be at that one spot and see it. And I loved it. I miss doing those actually a lot. I think they were one of my favorite, like, kind of mixes of both my passions. Yeah.
Yeah, they're super rad. I always love the way, like, your elaborate designs. There's always like a tinge of fairy tale to a lot of that stuff. Are there any particular costume designers that really inspire you?
I mean, Alexander McQueen. Um, he was probably my first love. Colleen Atwood, who does a lot of movies and works with Tim Burton a lot. I like a lot of her work. There's another one, Iris Van Harpen, does a lot more like 3D printed, but just crazy beautiful stuff. And there's another one, Garrett Pugh, I'm saying right, very gothic, kind of reminds me a lot of Alexander McQueen as well. So I think those were like the main ones that I can remember their names that I know that I like.
And you very much, so we already touched on how Michael was an influence of your life in terms of teaching you set design, and you very much subscribe to the ethos of DIY. Are there any other mentors that you've had that have really taught you along the way that are really important to your life?
Wow. Maybe my mom, actually. Like, I didn't think about it until I got older of like how much she dragged me to thrift stores, which is like why I hope I can drag my son to thrift stores. And she was always hot gluing stuff and spray painting, and she would take prom dresses that were just way too big for all of us, me and my friends, and she would tailor them to fit us, and then we'd have little proms, and we were always dancing, and so we'd make these like funny little concerts slash shows in the garage. So I realized like I always, liked kind of doing things that had to do with performance, whether it was me performing or just like working on that kind of stuff. But my mom definitely, I grew up in a pretty creative environment where she just was super loving, told me I could do anything I wanted to do, encouraged it. I mean, I was always making stuff with her, and I don't have brothers and sisters, so I was just kind of alone a lot, just drawing, but it wasn't lonely. Like I was always like, cool, a cardboard box, and then like I would turn it into, playhouse. I don't know. It's just always kind of been there, but I think my mom, for sure.
That's awesome.
Mm.
Well, Christina, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. Is there anything you want to plug? Social media, any cool things happening in your life?
Yeah. So I mean, I'm on Instagram mostly. I live in my stories because I can see that you watch them. So
Thanks for making me feel like a creep. Jeez.
in a nice way. I mean, I'm glad. My next project is a themed Airbnb. So this is what I'm super excited to work on next. And kind of goes back to like all these set designs that we do. It's like they go up and then they get torn down. And this is the first time like it's going to stay up. And we're going to have 4 different themed rooms. One is going to be Beetlejuice, this Dante's Inferno, and this space is going to stay the same. And we're going to do a camping room, and it's going to have like a night sky and like a little cabin that you like take stairs up to and hide in, and, you know, fake campfire and grass. And then we're going to do 2 Victorian rooms, one like really dark, slight nod to Harry Potter, but not totally Harry Potter. And then a really pink frilly one. This is just going to be ultra foo-foo. So I'm really excited about this project because that's how I'm going to try to support myself when the baby comes. And just to kind of have a little bit of stability, I think, you know, building all these sets is really fun, but it's like you build them, you take them down, you build them, you take them down, you ruin them. You know, this is like something that's going to stay, and I can add on to it, and multiple people, hopefully for years, can come and visit and experience and take pictures and explore and interact with them.
Do you have a general idea of when they're all going to be complete and ready to actually stay in?
Hopefully before the baby's born. So I have about 3 months. Yeah, that's to be determined, but I'm going to say 2022 for sure, probably within the next 3 to 6 months.
Cool. Yeah, so Black Lotus Clothing on Instagram. I guess keep watch there for all your awesome progress.
Yep.
Awesome.
Cool.
Well, Christina, thank you again for your time. It was fantastic to spend time with you and look and review all your work, and thank you for sharing so much of your life with us.
Well, thank you for highlighting us. Like, thanks for giving us a platform to, you know, like, hi, we do all this stuff. Love us. It's not just about all the rock stars. They're great, but, you know, give a high five to your backstage artists. We appreciate it.
Exactly. Awesome, Christina. Thank you so much. Everybody else, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.